What was the best gift you ever received from your parents? A dog, a car, a phone, an iPad? The best gift I ever received was being adopted by them. What made it even better was that they didn't make my adoption a big mystery, and they were always open and honest with me about being adopted. This made me feel special, chosen, and loved. The most important gift parents can give a child is to share with them their true identity. In other words, telling them about their family history, such as where they're from, who their ancestors are, and what their medical history is. It is relevant to know this information even if you are not adopted, because it is likely or possible that you know someone who is, given that approximately 7 million Americans alive today are adopted. Do you know what Steve Jobs, Nicole Richie, Jamie Foxx, and Faith Hill all have in common? You may have guessed it, they're all adopted. While my adoption was closed, meaning my adoptive and birth parents never met, my birth mother made a photo album of her life that she delivered to the adoption attorney for me to look at when my parents felt I was ready. This album included pictures of her as a baby, her childhood, her college graduation, her adulthood, and even pictures of her dog, Morgan. Most importantly, the album included her name. My parents did not share this album with me at the time, especially because I was 1 month old when I got it. Instead, they kept it for the future until they felt I was ready. After 9 normal childhood years, both of my grandfathers passed away. As my family was grieving their deaths, my mom decided to search for my birth mother on the internet. Knowing I just lost a big part of my family, my mother wanted me to have the opportunity to know my birth family, should I ever want to meet them someday. After many hours of my mom's internet search, she sadly came across my birth mother's obituary. Immediately, my mother contacted our adoption attorney to ensure there were no health problems that might affect me. Luckily, my birth grandparents told the attorney that her death was not due to a genetic predisposition. My birth family gave my mom their contact information through the attorney in case we would want to meet them someday. At the time, my parents felt I wasn't ready to meet them because I was too young, having just experienced the devastating loss of both grandfathers, and that I might struggle to understand that I would never meet my birth mother. At the age of 13, my bar mitzvah was coming up. In many Jewish families, this act is a ritual that commemorates entering adulthood. Therefore, my parents decided it was time to tell me what happened to my birth mother and how my birth grandparents wanted to meet me. At this point, I wasn't really sure if I wanted to meet my birth family, but then my parents shared the photo album with me. After seeing the book, I no longer felt hesitant to meet my birth family. I felt overwhelmed with grief that I would never meet my birth mother, but was grateful that she made this book for me documenting her life. I also discovered that I strongly resemble her. I have her smile and thick eyebrows. Since my birth grandparents lost their only child, I couldn't imagine what it would be like for my parents to lose me, their only child. So I felt it was the right thing to do to meet them. My parents reached out, but only my birth grandmother responded, since my birth grandfather also passed away just a few months before they made contact. She was at a low point in her life after just losing her husband as well as her only child. Meeting me allowed for an important and meaningful connection they always hoped for but never expected to happen. Meeting my birth grandmother added to my identity by allowing me to learn about my past. This relationship created many new pathways, like meeting my younger half-brother, who I didn't even know existed, and I even met Morgan, the dog, who is still alive today. This added a whole new dimension to my character that I never knew I was missing. It didn't completely change my life. However, it did fill a void I didn't know I had. My parents' openness and honesty with me is the current way of handling the adoption process, even though my adoption was closed. In contemporary times, most domestic adoptions are open, meaning the birth mother meets and chooses the adoptive parents. This system allows adoptees to know their history, and many adoptive families feel a sense of gratitude and pride. This transparency hasn't always been the case. I had the pleasure of speaking with New York Times bestselling author Gabrielle Glazer, who recently wrote the book American Baby. She researched the history of adoption and shared some fascinating facts. Adoption began in the 19th century when underprivileged kids were taken from their families and made indentured servants on farms in the West. Adoption agencies were established in the early 1900s. These agencies moved children from orphanages and placed them in homes with stable families. In the 1920s, new medical discoveries allowed children to live longer. In this new era, parents had more reasons physically and financially to adopt a child and let them thrive. Adoption became popular in the 1930s, but it also became secretive in order to protect the adoptee and birth parents, who often were not married or too young to legally get married. This created a stigma about the adoption process. Officials would issue an original birth certificate with the birth mother and father's name, and the birth certificate would be sealed so only judges and attorneys could access it. A new birth certificate would be issued with the adoptive parents' names and the newly adopted name of the child. Because of this confidential process, many parents didn't tell their children they were adopted. These adoptions were all closed, so no details of health, traits, siblings, or family history were ever provided or shared. Knowing that adoptive children have had struggles with loss, identity, and rejection in their later years, it is very important to be educated about the struggles with adoptions. Many celebrities are advocates for adoption, such as Faith Hill, who said, "Having been adopted, I really have a strong sense, a necessity almost, for stability, a foundation where my family is concerned. Success would be meaningless without anyone to share it with." This quote shows me how important it is to have an open and honest adoption, and without this transparency, there can be serious consequences. Loss is sometimes felt by a child when he or she is first adopted, even though the child has new parents. If children don't know they are adopted, then this loss is felt again when they find out, because they were lied to and feel as if they lost both their birth parents and adoptive parents. Identity is another struggle with adoptees. With these identity struggles, some adoptees may wonder, are they truly who their new name is? Who is their birth family and who are their ancestors? What are their medical history and genetics? Also, some adoptees who feel that they were rejected by their birth parents may feel that if they try to search for their birth parents later on in life, they might be rejected again. To me, this is why it's so important for everyone to understand their identity by giving them full access to their past. As parents, the contemporary philosophy is to support their adoptive children and assist them in knowing their adoptive journey. In 2021, with the help of the Adoptees Liberty Movement Association, the American Adoption Congress, and other organizations, adoptees have gained the rights in 10 states to have access to their original birth certificate, including their birth parents' names and their own original given name. Therefore, I feel that family heritage and all aspects of the truth need to be integrated into adoptive children's identities from an early age. This shows that being adopted is a huge part of your story, and as for me, it is a huge part of my life. In order for a child to forge his or her identity, it is necessary to have access to their past to be able to fully understand where they came from. Everybody deserves their own origin story, how they came to be, what their genetic family makeup is, and where they got their traits from. Philosopher Aristotle once said, "Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom." By being transparent with me, my family put me on a path to personal knowledge before I even understood the importance of it. More than any material present, this is the most powerful gift that parents can give their children. In 2014, I experienced a great loss with the deaths of my grandfathers and birth mother. However, within these losses, I found myself as I connected to my birth family for the first time. This balance between knowing and not knowing, past and present, being lost and being found, made me who I am at this moment. And while I do not know what the future holds, I am forever grateful for the gift that is trust, honesty, and love in my relationship with my parents. Thank you.